As one of the most watched TV shows in history, it's not surprising that the sequel to Squid Game became a highly anticipated title for audiences in 2024. After being the only survivor of 6 deadly trials, the main character Ki-hun, with his dyed red hair, made a bold decision to re-register for the island to directly confront those who created the Squid Game. Will his journey be as engaging as the first part, or will this be a step backward for this hit franchise? Let's find out in today's video. Please note that I will try not to spoil key plot points, but it's difficult to avoid revealing some information. Therefore, please consider before continuing. Picking up the timeline right after the phone call in episode 9 of the first season, Squid Game Season 2 doesn't immediately bring Ki-hun back to the game. Instead, he is refused entry by the leader. With no leads, no evidence, Ki-hun embarks on a 2-year-long search. On the other side, police officer Jung-jae, as predicted by audiences, has been rescued, and also spends all the time he has to find the nameless island. So both give up their personal lives to uncover the secrets. First, Ki-hun and Jung-jae's desire to return to the game leads us to a very obvious issue: the amount of time the film has to spend preparing the protagonist and finding clues about the organization. Unlike the first season, where the 456 players were taken to the red light, green light room within half of the first episode, Squid Game 2 had to spend the first 2 hours leading audiences to the official challenge. Of course, this is logical since the black-masked leader knows and is wary of Ki-hun's every move. However, it has to be acknowledged that the film has a rather lengthy start. Furthermore, the progression is too bogged down in unnecessary detail, such as the scene with the man in the suit that hawks the Jung-jae paper game. While he's an interesting character, his scenes about handing out bread and lottery tickets don't really add to the story, and we don't need to hear him elaborate about his ideals. Especially with the season being reduced to only 7 episodes, with a lot of things to resolve, the slow start isn't a very logical move. Fortunately, when the games finally take place, the tense atmosphere characteristic of the series is recreated fairly well. I won't compare the games of Season 2 with Season 1, as it depends on each viewer's taste. But overall, both the 5-sport challenge and the team matching game are quite creative and challenging. They also create situations where teammates turn into enemies, where every small mistake is paid for with one's life. Squid Game also retains its distinct aesthetic with liminal space-style settings that feel surreal, creating an empty and unsettling feeling. The bright and vibrant colors of the costumes contrast perfectly with the gore of the game, creating a haunting, dystopic world. The only thing is, the number of games is too few. There are only 3 challenges in total, including red light, green light, which was taken from the previous season, making it feel incomplete. This continues to be a result of the limited number of episodes. The draw of the challenges also largely relies on the participants. For instance, in the first season, the marbles game in episode 6 had a simple design, but its cruelty was due to our anxiety about the characters that we loved. In Season 2, with a large number of players, I personally think the movie has enough memorable characters, but there are also a lot of forgettable ones. Gaining the most emotion from the audiences are Ki-hun's allies. We have the return of his childhood friend Cho-bi, the owner of the fried chicken shop, the trans soldier Han-ju, and the mother-daughter duo. To me, they have weight and were exploited well. Especially, the soldier Han-ju stood out the most, with a relatable story, clear motivations, and also having skills that are very necessary for the final events. Conversely, we have Jung-jae, a woman with a rather dull pregnancy, the painter Kyung-suk, who earns money to treat his daughter. They are also quite forgettable, or the sniper No-ul, who, I'm going to be honest, wasn't needed for this season. Her plotline and that of the Internal Organs gang were copied straight from the first season and did not really go anywhere. On the other side, the rapper Thanos, played by Big Bang's Top, is difficult to call a dangerous character. As soon as he started the game, he was beaten up, and most of his crazy actions came from the red-blue pills. And him appearing and disappearing had no impact. I personally prefer the gangster with a sly face, Do-soo from the first season, when he didn't have to act like a gangster and could be said to have stirred up the game back then. There are still other characters, but in general, the characters from Season 2 are quite disadvantaged when Netflix didn't bother hiding its intention to save character development for them in the 3rd season, which is confirmed to have wrapped filming. Therefore, if you're waiting for those like Sawoo, Ali, or the North Korean girl Sai Byuk that made many people cry, you will probably be disappointed, because with a lot of characters, they've only completed half of their journey. Of course, I don't agree with the excuse of using the next season to develop these half-baked characters, but if I had to pick out a saving grace, it would be the fact that it was still able to partly convey its message about inequality, man's greed, and the coldness we have for each other when blinded by money, which was a temporary success. Creating fewer games, abandoning side characters, and at the same time not revealing any more information about the mysterious organization is what Squid Game 2 brought to the table. So after that much sacrifice to focus on exploring Ki-hun's psychology, did our hero have any sort of breakthrough? The sad answer is no, and Ki-hun is the most disappointing character for me personally. Firstly, it is clear that he has not learned many lessons after his victory. With 46 billion won, roughly $31,288,000, it is hard to believe that Ki-hun didn't hire skilled people, but instead used his capital for debt collectors that hang around train stations every day. He also trusted them for 2 years. The assassination plan for the black-masked leader on Halloween was very haphazard, and Kai-hun's return to the game was just because the boss was interested. Moreover, when he arrived on the island, Ki-hun was completely lost. He showed his capabilities in the green light, red light game by saving almost 400 people, but from the second game onwards, Ki-hun was like a new player. He didn't speak up, had no idea about the rules, and also got scammed by number 001 in the same way old man Oh Il-nam tricked him back then. Especially, the plan in the last episode makes me question the naivety of this character. Crying for justice when he only has a small group with him, it's unclear how Kai-hun could be so confident in being able to defeat the highly aggressive guards that he saw for himself. Not to mention why his comrades put their life on the line for a plan that had a 90% chance of failing. When watching Squid Game, I try to not pay attention to the plot holes because the first season had those too. But when you see that the characters, moments ago, had the chance to go home with 300 million won, but then they willingly gave it all up to follow Kai-hun to their deaths, that unreasonableness has just become too much. 3 years of preparation, having enough money to buy whatever you want, and 2 hours of time to plan, Ki-hun finally only changed his melancholic face and wasted everything he has on a battle that viewers already know the outcome to. On the outside, Officer Jung-jae with his elite squad also didn't get much action. After 7 episodes, he hasn't moved forward much, besides aligning himself with Ki-hun's side, and is likely to be manipulated by that organization again. And finally, something I'd like to mention is the atmosphere that the film creates. It put in quite a few humorous details, and personally, I feel the tension was diluted in unnecessary moments. The most notable example is the character Woo-sok. After surviving a life-or-death battle in the tug-of-war, it's very difficult to understand why he is still so quirky, funny, and the main comedic relief of the series. In the game, there were also funny lines and banter. I'm not saying they were not funny, but the way characters make light of the situation, while locked on a strange island that could be their death, was uncalled for. If we're talking about humor, I admit that Ki-hun's face when he got the umbrella-shaped cookie in the first season was very comical, but it was a bittersweet, even tragic type of laughter. This time around, like I mentioned, the comedy diluted the tension that Squid Game needs to have. Overall, I feel rather disappointed with the return of Squid Game. While it retained its grandiosity and aesthetics, the plot, characters, and the development of their psyche all have too many problems. It's unclear if the third season will fix these issues, but if you want to bring the series back, there might need to be a change right now. But from what I see, Squid Game 2 is more of a trailer for the third part that starts off slow and finishes hurriedly. That is all of my impressions on the second season of Squid Game. Do you agree with this review? Leave a comment below so we can discuss it further. This video has come to an end here. Goodbye and happy watching.